Hi, here we are in 1920, 104 years ago, and the setting is Monte Carlo. The month is December. The day is the 30th. It's a Thursday. Presumably the weather is good, and Dimitri is having a nice day, just straight up a nice day. Probably because he's not confronted with his brother-in-law. And I do like the mood. His mood is, generally speaking, pretty easy to pick up from his diary entries. And today he's had a get-together with his sister in the morning. Then he's gone to have lunch with his cousin/aunt Anastasia Mikhailovna and meet her son and talk to his kind of crazy uncle Mish, and that was a little stressful, but yeah, overall he's having a good day. And I don't know, as much as he would later be big on the social scene, there was still something of the 14-year-old in Dimitri who didn't like so much being around people he didn't know and being in big crowds. And he even as an adult, he very often mentions in his diary that he's gone somewhere and there were lots of people, or there were lots of people that he didn't know, and it was a bore, and so on and so forth. But when he's in a relaxed mood and enjoying himself and wanting to not just be by himself, he likes to stop by and see people and run into people and spend time with them. So this is one of those days, and I should have said at the beginning, this is the second half of the diary for the 30th of December. So when we left off, he had just left wherever he had gone to see Aunt Anastasia. I see he does give the time here. So let's dive into that. On the way back to Monte Carlo, I stopped by Cap d'Ale to see André, but he wasn't home. I got home around 6 o'clock and ran into Papa Dominic and Dolly, who were on their way to the Polovtsovs for tea. I went with them. There we all went to blank and opened a bottle of old sherry. I dined at the Hotel de Paris at the invitation of old Papa Dominic. Olga Radziwills was there. Her maiden name was, it looks like Simosh. Her husband was also there, and old Bichette Radziwill. It was a very successful dinner. Afterwards, of course, we went to the casino. We all went to the Carlton for supper. Maria came, both of the Polovtsovs, and Sofka, who's living in Nice. We went for a walk, and it was very nice. Everyone was in a lighthearted mood, and the time flew by. I got home only around 3 a.m. Okay, so this reminds me that I have made a big mistake in relation to the Polovtsovs. So I had said rather emphatically when we first met them that Mimi Polovtsov was the wife of Alexander Polovtsov, who has not been involved in any of this and hasn't been with this little group. And it turns out that she was indeed the wife of Pete, which makes much more sense. And I simply got the two women mixed up because Pete's wife's given name or Christian name was Sophia. And so here she turns up with the name Sofka. And so Mimi, I'm now left to wonder and try to find out what her Christian name was. It certainly wasn't Mimi. So I'll have to do some digging on that, and I do apologize for getting that mixed up. Okay, so Dimitri gets back around 6 o'clock. he had started out in Cannes, then he'd stopped to see Andre, who wasn't there. No cell phones back in those days. So when he gets back, he runs into the Radziwills right away. And they're on their way to the Polovtsovs. And Dmitri decides to go with them. So it seems to me that Gulia was not at the Polovtsovs' villa at that time, and it seems like Dmitri knew that Gulia wasn't going to be there, and possibly also that Maria wasn't going to be there. I'm 99% sure that if they were going to be there, and if they were there, Dmitri would have mentioned them by name. It would be very untypical of him not to. So I think he knew that they wouldn't be there. And they have such a nice time there. They open a bottle of sherry, and then Papa Dominic invites him to dinner, and he goes off, and there are even more Radziwills. And I think he was probably quite happy to have this invitation to dinner, because I think his, I know his finances were strained. I have no idea how he was paying for all of this. But anyway, he has an invitation to dinner. And the other Radziwills, who were they? Well, it seems to have been a very big family, and I've never done any reading about them beyond what I have read in Dmitri's own diaries. I mean, I know famously that the sister of Jacqueline Kennedy married a Radziwill, but that was the only thing I ever knew about them before Dmitri's diaries. And now, so I looked in my old notes from years ago and saw that there wasn't really anything. I looked online and I found Papa Dominic, whose name was actually Dominique, and he was about 70 years old. And we know, of course, that he was Dolly's father. But I couldn't find Olga Radziwill. I didn't find anyone with a name even slightly resembling Olga, or a middle name Olga, that I thought, that could be her. Bichette was Maria, and I believe she was Papa Dominic's wife, but I could be wrong about that. I absolutely could be wrong about that. Okay. He describes her as old, though, and he describes Papa Dominic as old, but he doesn't present them to us as husband and wife, though they might have been. Okay, so then afterwards, of course, as Dmitri himself puts it, they all went to the casino, and afterwards to the Carlton for supper, and there they were joined by Maria and Mimi and Pete, but rather conspicuous for his absence is Gulia. So maybe Gulia decided that he was going to stay home and sulk, or maybe he was spending that day and night with his parents, or who knows. Okay, so they all go for a walk after supper, and everyone was feeling lighthearted. The time flew by. He got home around 3 a.m., but he doesn't say, as he usually does, that they overdrank. So it seems like they just, had a really nice time. And I think it's interesting that consistently throughout his diaries, I haven't encountered it yet when he was a child, but when he was a child, he wasn't going out with friends to dinner. But he almost always notes if it was what he calls a successful dinner, or if it was an unsuccessful dinner. Usually his word, if he has a good time, was that it was successful, and if he doesn't have a good time, it's that it was a bore, which is a word he uses a lot as a teenager. So whether this was standard practice in Russia at that time to use the word successful in relation to dinner parties and dinner out at restaurants with friends, I don't know. But I guess successful meant, yeah, everybody was in a good mood, there wasn't any arguing, and it was enjoyable. And I'll leave it at that. So the next diary entry will be New Year's Eve, the 31st of December, on the Gregorian calendar. And so Dimitri and Maria and Gulia and the Polovtsovs and anybody else who's along for the ride will be confronted with that, and if they're going to celebrate New Year's Eve on the Western calendar, if they're not, if they feel, all things considered with what's going on in Russia, that they want to celebrate. So come back for that one. Bye.